We're live. Well, good evening and welcome to the December 11th, 2025 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Edmund Cherneski and I am chair of the commission currently. The commission members will now please introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Peter. Don't forget to unmute your mic. It's the button on the bottom.
Peter Keebler, associate member.
Liam Reardon.
Nathaniel King.
Rebecca Krepke.
And we'll just carry on down the line.
Advisory consultant, Mike Pullen.
Planning Officer Anya Collette.
Matt, I'll speak for you if you'd like, because you don't have a mic. All right. Well, I don't want to go through the entire explanation of what we do because it's just us in the room. So I'm going to ask the commission if they're interested in. Let's deal with our minute adoptions and our conversation or our new items to the agenda. And then if the commission wishes to delay, if the applicant is not here, we can recess briefly. But if everyone is okay, we'll start with the adoption of findings for the old business. So it is the adoption of findings and decision for 198 Broadway. This, of course, is our decision from the previous meeting. So anybody like to give me a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we approve the findings for 198 Broadway Street.
Second.
All right. Point of order, Anya. Oh, no, it's okay, Peter, because I still have 4, so I don't have to answer that question yet. Never mind. We'll do a roll call vote. Liam, I'll start with you, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Nate. Rebecca?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. We approve or adopt our findings and decision for 198 Broadway from the previous meeting in October. Mike, I'm going to ask if I can borrow your pen so we can do the signature thing. Thank you. I neglected to bring my own today. Somebody has to be looking out for me. And I will pass that down to Liam first and he can pass back. And then we'll end with Rebecca since you are closest to the pen holder.
Okay.
All right. The next item on the old business is the meeting minutes from the previous meetings, October 9th and October 29th. Again, for everybody, October 9th was our regular scheduled meeting and October 29th was the special meeting where we were doing code revision proposals.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for October 9th and for October 29th.
Second.
Motion. I have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Liam.
Yes.
Nathaniel.
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Meeting minutes are approved successfully. All right. Anya, did you want the signed copy? So that is our old business. We still don't have an applicant, so we have an opportunity to discuss some new business at the request of our associate member here tonight, Peter Keebler. Peter, if you would like to enter into discussion, what you would like to ask.
Certainly.
Probably not a proposal so much as if you have questions, I will try to answer. If I don't have a good one, I'm sure Anya will correct me or at least take notes.
So I actually have 3 areas of a question that may be clarified. I'll actually start with one that's probably pretty easy.
Thanks.
This is unfortunately was not able to be here at the workshop meeting and reading through the minutes. One of the questions I have is, what is the procedure for the amendments and changing of the ordinances? Who actually does that? And there, in the minutes, there was a comment about coming forth or working up more specific proposals for amendments. And my question is, what is the role of the commission in terms of approving those, or does this have to go to the city council or others for the final addition of amendments or changing of the ordinances?
So the plan, as far as I was concerned, was that we would be able to workshop any proposed changes or amendments or additions to our code
Right.
and then present that to, well, probably via staff to the city council. We do need to be careful in how and what we do and how we structure it so that we don't lose our certification as a certified local government, so we can keep our funding. And my phrase at the workshop was, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I know some concerns from the public, if you'd like, on clarity, transparency, and precedent, the same ones that I think that we also have questions on, as well as what our role is in the past, going forward. The city staff had a list of suggestions.
Right.
I cannot speak specifically for what your sources were, but I know I had some of my own, and I think some of that was taken into account based on previous camp trainings and other stuff. I know
Okay.
Nate had a lot to bring to that as well as some citizens had their own presentation, had their own
Sure,
suggestions.
absolutely.
No findings were, like, we adopted nothing. We just talked about it, took notes, and the request was that staff come back with, I guess, probably a summary and a little bit more specific conversation about that so that the future commission members could take that up.
Sure, and it's actually the process and protocol that I'm interested in mostly in terms of understanding this. And I'm taking what I'm hearing to suggest that this commission does have the ability to take the initiative to suggest amendments or changes to the ordinances and that would then, based on what you're suggesting, are bringing something together to be presented to city council. I'm reminded of the letter we sent to the city council in which we suggested possible expansion of, for example, including green space and other things. And that I don't remember hearing any follow-up from that of those to be appropriate. And so I'm trying to get a better sense of the protocol and the expectation and the format to which we need to bring these ideas forward, as we didn't really hear anything back about the suggestions we had made previously.
Thought I did forward that to you all. We forwarded your letter to council, or the city manager did. She
Yes.
talked with them and they weren't interested in pursuing that change at the time. So that's where that went. And what we're looking to do now is we are going to be actually working on the draft changes based on what was discussed at that workshop. We're going to bring it to the commission. You all will have feedback on that and you can suggest changes too. We'll take that back. We'll do another draft. We'll bring it forward. I imagine it would work like the planning board works. They make a recommendation on whether a code change passes, and then that goes to council for the final approval.
The experience of other historic preservation commissions across the country who've gone through this process is it's not going to be anywhere near as fast as you might want it to be. It will, well, and it shouldn't be quickly, because that means you haven't necessarily taken your time and pushed through stuff. I will say, Peter, for you, at the workshop, I was really hoping that you were going to be able to make, because I was hoping you were going to bring up green spaces, but I brought them up for you.
Oh, thank you.
Because and we should talk about this because this was on the list. This is like, there is definitely a list of things, and I think we had a good start. At least it was a cordial conversation.
And I'm very pleased to hear that, because part of the issue in being involved in the commission is I think the commission should take a front row position in helping the city to understand and move forward on initiatives that are related to this work, preservation.
Please, Mike.
If I could, it's also described in the duties of the commission.
It is.
One of the duties is specifically to continue to evolve what needs protection within the city. So that might be expansion of a district, or protection of a landmark, that sort of thing.
Right.
But I would say that MHPC, Maine Historic Preservation Commission, who really are the ones that oversee the CLG, Certified Local Government Program, would want to review and approve of our changes to any substance within the ordinance that would have a substantive change in the way that the council commission.
I think that sort of involvement and oversight is appropriate. Obviously, we need to keep in line with the Department of Interior's, all those things as well. I just like the idea that this commission will have the ability or has the ability to take the initiative and maybe do a yearly workshop of this sort to follow up on the previous suggestions, look at where things are going, et cetera. I mean, unless you have a strategic plan for focusing on what you're trying to get accomplished down the line. I mean, I've been involved in the administration of Eastern Maine Medical Center for 30 years, and I can tell you, yes, things move slowly in the administrative circles for things. And you sometimes have to take the opportunities as they occur. But my point being that if you keep your eye on where you're trying to go and you have procedural stuff set up to try and keep you moving that direction, it's great. And I like the idea that, we have the ability as a group to say, yeah, we'd like to do a yearly workshop or something along that line.
I will say, coming out of our workshop meeting at the end of October, just two general things. There was perhaps more consensus than I necessarily expected going into it, given the disparity of opinions in the room. I saw that smile, Liam. Additionally, Anne reminded us at the end of the October 9th meeting that, I believe it was that one anyway, that in the past, this commission has met twice a month. So
really?
if you wished, and Liam and I not being a factor necessarily next year, if you have the desire and the push and the wherewithal to do that, I would suggest, as the outgoing chair, that you perhaps adopt that so that you can spend a meeting dealing with whatever certificates of appropriateness may come up, and then you at least have some more time dedicated to kind of do this code review.
Right.
If you want it to move as quickly as it can, because it still will be slow, having that extra time budgeted in might help.
Sure.
At least it means things don't pile up as much, because as we all know, sometimes the meetings will run on because we have to spend a lot of time talking about Windows or
Sure.
I do think that that's not a bad idea, just because we are bound by speaking publicly for the city, and it really puts a hindrance on like actually getting stuff done.
Right.
Because then we're like, well, see you next month, like nothing's going to move fast.
If you are willing to, and you guys can decide this, of course, in January, or we can talk about it now. But again, I can't. Well, I mean, I can, I guess, make rules for you guys, but lame duck president here. So, but realistically, if you commit to it, even if you find you don't need it, if the plan is there, you're more likely to move your goalposts. And I know you don't need me to tell you that. That's just my advice.
No, appreciate that.
Question one.
So that's question one. Question two really has to do with the issue of conflict of interest and consistency and what that is. The experience over the last few months and my involvement in bringing forward a concern of conflict of interest on my part regarding a particular application, though I had not felt myself that there was conflict of interest, I thought I should bring it up given the nature of the discussions. And actually had discussed with the legal counsel that had been at one of the meetings when I first brought this up, and it was tabled because we didn't address the issues that day. And he came to me and he asked me, what are your issues and concerns, so that I have an idea? And I explained to him, and he said he didn't see it as a conflict of interest. And the following meeting, I brought it up again because I thought it was appropriate. He was not there to be part of the discussion.
Yep.
And although my conflict was that I rent space to a company that does restoration work in this city, and the precedent in this group had been to vote a principal of that company as being not having a conflict of interest previously, I felt, well, this is a good thing to make sure that I brought it up so there's no later concern. And I really did not expect that there would be an issue of saying that I had a conflict. Yet I was voted as having a conflict. And my issue with that has to do with an understanding better of what conflict really means. I mean, I know we have this written, but as I've stated, the actual reality is conflict is decided by the commission itself.
Yep.
And the act for someone in my position having a conflict brings up a question to me as to whether myself moving forward, almost every applicant we have is someone that is doing some sort of historic restoration. And we have another associate member who is a principal in that company. And is it reasonable then, I mean, if that precedent is a reasonable precedent, I'm not sure that I will have a place in this discussion, because I think then I will have a conflict at almost every point in the future, and that the other associate member would as well. And even our most esteemed colleague, who is the most important person at this table, in my view, in terms of guiding what we do and what we decide, would be our consultant, who does this work as well. And so I think this is a very important question for the commission overall. As I mentioned, I was never told why there was a decision that I had a conflict. So that doesn't aid my knowledge and understanding whether I should be considering myself to have a conflict in the eyes of the commission in the future or not. And so that's why I bring this up, because I think it's exceptionally important. If the reasons for my having conflict are in place for that applicant, I don't quite see why they wouldn't be in place for others. And that's why I have to decide whether it makes sense for me to be involved in this, because I will find myself holding my hand to the chair at every meeting and saying, I may have a conflict. This is my conflict. And, you know, the reason I brought it up at that meeting would be the same reason I would be bringing it up in almost every other meeting. So I bring this forth for discussion, and my hope was to have legal counsel involved to have a discussion as well. As you've put forth, and I can understand that every individual instance, there's a vote for this. But my concern is that the end enforcement for what we do in this room has to do with the only thing that we can get to in the end to undo some, somebody doing what they shouldn't do and against our recommendations and everything else, is for the city to take them to court.
Mhm.
And where there may not be a precedent in our proceedings that is appropriate, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems to me that legal precedent and legal proceedings is one of the most important fundamentals of that process. So being public record, what has gone here, I can see an objection from a lawyer in a legal proceeding of the city, bringing someone to court who says, hey, look right in here in your minutes. We're going to object that any of the, 3 of the 5 members of the committee were involved in this based on that precedent. And so these are the concerns I have, and I bring them to the group. I'm hoping that I can find some level plane of understanding and reasonable thought process as to whether I would be effective in being involved with this group in the future or others.
Go ahead, Nate.
No. I think one of the big keys for the last couple of conflicts of interest, remind me if I'm wrong,
My
was
bad.
the direct financial interest or indirect financial interest. In the past, I know we haven't had, using Matt's company as an example, they've not been involved in every single project I know that we've had come in front of us. So I think,
And they were not involved in the project that I was voted as having a conflict.
right, that was being brought up by a member of the public, I think puts it under, maybe I'm incorrect, puts it under a little bit different lens. But as far as what we're doing, not a lawyer, but I don't believe that you would have a conflict of interest on every single application that's brought in front of us, unless that application explicitly said that, Matt Whitecamp Incorporated or whatever his company's called, is the roofers, or they're doing our slate roofs, or they're doing this restoration work. Because then I think you can say, okay, well then, yes, I have a direct financial interest to that. But for every application that comes in front of us, I couldn't see why you would have a conflict of
Well,
interest.
then let me ask the question though. I can agree with you in that respect if there's a direct involvement, but I was voted as having conflict, having no direct involvement. That company had no direct involvement. And when I look at that, it's like, how is that different for anyone else, in the sense that company doesn't just do slate roofs, they do full restoration work.
Sure.
So.
Anya, I wonder if you have any advice for us about how conflicts of interest come up with other committees in the city and how they deal with it?
Um, well, I mean, it goes through the same process that you all went through. I mean, it is really hard because it is up to you all to make that determination on whether it's a conflict. I do think, there's the risk of maybe being overcautious when you do make those decisions. But you also want to be really careful in identifying when there is actually a conflict. I can't tell you, whether I think that somebody has a conflict, but
Right.
yeah, I don't really know the best way to answer that. Sorry.
How often does it come up on other committees? And I mean, is it a regular occurrence?
When when taking a vote on a conflict is
Yeah.
not very often, no.
So can I bring up then the issue that, from my perspective, clarity in this is important, especially as we're looking at bringing a significant number of new regular members on this committee.
Mm.
And, this commission did vote a conflict of interest when the counsel I discussed, who was in the meeting when I brought it up, who understood the contentious nature of all this, had said to me he didn't see a conflict. And so there's a difference between the legal counsel's thoughts, understanding the whole situation, and what the commission had to say and in making the determination. And I can't say who's right or wrong per se, but I can say that one of the concerns is the question of education and appropriate, as I said, have legal counsel in the room to have an input into this discussion. We have our esteemed architectural consultant in the room for consultation about the content of what we see and make judgments on. Should we not have counsel in the room about the legal aspects of what we're doing when those legal aspects are being brought up by applicants that are unhappy with what we have to say?
Yeah.
So,
I have brought this up and I did request legal to be present at these meetings. The problem is if HPC decisions are appealed, it goes to the Board of Appeals, which our legal staffs. So
Right.
they can't staff both. And that's why they were hesitant to come to these meetings. But if you all feel strongly that they need to be here, I can try to make that case again. Maybe we could get outside legal counsel if somebody does appeal a decision.
I, again, won't always be my decision, but I feel like when we're dealing with a situation like we have been, it's been very important to have legal counsel in the room. As a note, Peter, again, just so I can state it officially, again, for the record, we are not bound by precedent. We can reverse our decisions at any time you so choose to do so. You are just supposed to evaluate everything on a case-by-case basis on the evidence that's in front of you. So at the time that you suggested that you might have a conflict of interest, I think, to use Anya's words, we may have been a little overcautious, but we were trying to work within the verbiage of what constituted a conflict of interest, and perhaps our own understanding wasn't where it needed to be. We certainly have evolved that over time because we had several of these conflict of interest votes that have come up, of course. So I know Liam has dug into it, and I had dug into it as well, and I know we very much had the appearance of a conflict came up a couple of times, and I feel the language on that was a little, not a little, was unclear to me as far as what exactly that meant. So again, I know you haven't been here, but we have learned, and I don't think it's funny to, posit what might have happened in the past, but if we were at our knowledge base now on our understanding of conflict of interest, and you were before us again, it would have been a different vote.
I think part of the annual orientation in the new year with new members
Covers
will
this.
get briefed by the city attorney about, and members of the commission at that point will have some very specific questions to ask him about, well, how do we interpret that? What does that mean?
I think
Right?
it is.
We've learned a lot about the
Well,
different.
and I would like to think that moving forward, that there might be some communal wisdom that moves forward and is, increased with time and the experience. Unfortunately, civilization doesn't necessarily show us that in general. But the reality is that we're talking about this. I mean, every member sitting in that room had gone through this training, and some had many years of experience on this commission to that point. And yet, there's, you've described, a change in the sort of sense of what is appropriate over time. And so I hear this issue, but I'm not convinced that one time, giving orientation to new members that are just trying to figure out where they're going to sit in the room is going to make it better than it has been in this situation.
Not disagreeing.
So, and so I'm just kind of pushing the point on this a little bit. And I will go back to legal counsel, which is to say the time to have legal counsel in the room is when there's a discussion about the conflict, not afterwards. Not when you think there might be a conflict. Because what are you going to do? Go back and say, oh, we voted for conflict, but now we've talked to legal and we're going to unvote that and we're going to reassess this again. If you see what I'm saying. It's the time is to have the legal counsel there when the decision's made.
Yeah.
Similar to having Mike in the room when we make a decision about architectural appropriation's.
Most of the time.
Excuse me, I will say
yes.
that in the past, years past, we used to have the city's solicitor at most all the meetings,
Yeah.
every meeting.
I know they did. But apparently what happened after a certain point was they went through all of their boards and committees that they staff. And the ones that went to Board of Appeals, they decided they shouldn't do. But I will make the case again, because I do agree, like,
Yeah.
this is a regulatory board and
We are
legal
quasi-judicial.
questions- Yeah, so legal
Well,
questions come up and
yeah.
I think that we need that.
I was really hoping that guy would be there at that next meeting when I brought it up again, because he had a very distinct, can't remember who it was. It wasn't Dave Sevchek. It was
Hamer.
Dave
Yeah.
Hamer. Because I was like, I felt great. Well, he was in that meeting. He was there for good reason. We didn't actually address the issue because we ended up having to table it. But so, I mean, I would like to keep this in our mind and
Yeah.
straightforward as we move forward, because I think it's an incredibly important aspect of what we're doing. And it needs to be part of the question when we look at new members is how do we determine for applicants to be on the commission, whether they are people that may have conflicts of interest or not? I mean, similar to we're talking about trying to educate our homeowners that they have obligations to fill as far as the historic appropriateness of what they do. We should make sure that members coming in here at the beginning are understanding what their obligations are in terms of potential conflict of interest, and be clear about it.
I say this as perhaps the somewhat of an outlier on this commission, ironically. I think we will tend to find that the people who are passionate and care a lot about being on a historical preservation commission probably have some sort of connection to the industry in
Yeah.
some way.
And I absolutely understand that, and I agree with that. I mean, back when I first started doing my work in Bangor and restoration, Bob Kelly was the consultant, and that was his actual work. There was no question about his conflict in anything that I heard. But one could argue he had a much greater conflict than what we're talking about now.
And I think that will be the struggle of people who are knowledgeable and I'm going to use the word experts in their field, like
Yes.
Rebecca, Nate, Liam, not me.
Mhm.
People who are experts in their field are going to have a greater appearance, perhaps, of conflict because they are knowledgeable. And I would say for future generations of the commission next month that don't be, I don't have a better way to say than stand your ground. If you don't think you have a conflict, then don't avoid that overcautiousness that Ani was speaking about, because if they dislike your decision, it goes to appeals.
Yeah, I mean, just have more discussion about it. And I think it would be impossible to, like, when council's appointing committee members, to get rid of any possibility of a conflict. And the same thing, you would run into with planning board, because a lot of people that apply for planning board have been in development, or home inspections, or realty.
Right.
Yep.
They might have conflicts, and you could say they have an indirect conflict if they're, looking at a code change that would increase housing if they're a realtor. So
And all the more reason to have legal counsel available to help us with this somewhat unclear area.
our concerned citizens of previous meetings for our brainstorming session would have their own conflict if they were to serve upon the board. So
Very true.
those are always a fact. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to eliminate them completely.
Right.
I will just again reiterate, Peter, because you weren't here, but so Liam and Nate and Rebecca have already heard me say this. We are a quasi judicial board. We are supposed to proceed on an evidentiary basis with what we have in front of us. We are not bound by precedent for a reason, but it does behoove us to be consistent and offer clarity where we can so that the people who come before us have a reasonable expectation of what's going to happen and so that we have a reasonable expectation of what we're going to do. Just always remember, you don't have to. You can. You're not bound by it. And it is my belief, Peter, that we are not a punitive body. Like we are here to evaluate and offer a judgment, whether people like it or not. Like we're just not to be punitive. And you brought it up. If the city wishes to engage in punitive consequences or measures for people who don't follow the code, the city has a recourse for that. I don't.
Well, I appreciate the discussion. I mean, I didn't expect that we'd have any exact resolution, but I think it's very important we keep this in mind, and it's something I'll be thinking about. So I'm ready to move on to number 3, if you guys are okay with that.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
So another area of working towards clarity has to do with what you folks just voted on in terms of the approval of the exception for Mr. Farren. And comments in the workshop minutes about a desire to be more clear about economic hardship issues. I will read from this document, it's just all signed. The commission finds that based on exhibits 2-3 and 8-11, the property cannot yield a reasonable economic return, or the owner cannot make any reasonable use of the property. So this is the pivotal point where all the other things in terms of appropriateness were not agreed to, but this was the exception that allowed this to go through despite not meeting any of the other requirements.
Correct.
So this is an issue that I think is exceptionally important because, again, from a standpoint of people applying and our ability to actually have any quasi-judiciary approach towards maintaining the statutes that are there to help with historic preservation. If this is the out that anybody has, the question is, why do we meet at all? I would say, because I am not a contractor, but I am an historic preservationist. I've done a lot of this work on my own house. I've been in Bangor for 30 years. I bought a home, one of the most historic homes in the city, for about $200,000 when I came here. I put $750,000 into it for restoration and sold it for $360,000. So I can tell you I did all this because I thought it was very important to do what I could to provide historic preservation. I came in front of this august board just to try and change paint color back to something more historically appropriate. And I can tell you that there is almost no project that we're going to see here that economically makes any sense in terms of the resale value of the property. This is not the fault of the owners. This is the milieu that we have here, where you replace the windows with something that's custom made that costs you $50,000 more than so and so's vinyls. You're never going to get that back out when you sell the property, and for that reason, this exception then would apply to most people coming in front of this, if that is the determination that you're not going to get back out of it what you put in. So I'm just bringing this forward to say that I totally agree with the comment in the workshop that similarly to conflict of interest, I think we need to have a better idea from a legal perspective, or at least interpreting the statute that is used here in terms of how we accept or don't. How do you determine whether what the person is talking about will be recouped or not recouped in the future? I mean, we know by experience most of it won't be.
So I can speak for, well, I'm going to, whether I can or not, the group in the workshop, which was generally a bunch of homeowners from that historic district.
Right.
They, I think, would like nothing more than a very clear financial threshold that indicates exceptional circumstances. And this was one of those points where I understand how much they want that.
Mhm.
As the chair of the commission in that particular, in that instance, and from my point of like, when I talk about not throwing the baby out the bathwater, this is exactly what I mean. I appreciate that you want a number because that makes it easier for all of us. But then you don't need a board anymore. You'd be correct. If
Yes.
there's a number to be met, staff can handle it because it wouldn't need us anymore. Like we are there to apply the exceptional circumstances or.
The
and-
flip side of that, though, is if there's no definition of it, then we also have no bounds or basis to make that decision on.
Exactly, but that's specific. And Peter, like I've had my own wrestling with this because I also want clarity, but that is, I believe specifically the point of that piece of verbiage is that there isn't to be any bounds. And Liam, you both have unmiked, so you go ahead, please.
I'm curious in asking Mike's opinion about, so where do you draw the line on this issue of the
Well,
higher cost for
I
a
know what
more
convinced
historically
me.
appropriate? Yeah.
Because the person making the application, well-intended, may be throwing out numbers that don't necessarily mean anything. We heard some pretty profound
Yeah.
numbers. And if I remember, though, the considerations that night for exceptional circumstances really were not that so much, Peter, not that point, as much as item B, which was the plight of the owners due to exceptional unique circumstances, which had to do with the lack of skilled tradespeople here. That was the much bigger issue in applying exceptional circumstances.
Except
And
we have those people,
So yes,
Sure.
let me offer like my piece on
and
it.
they didn't ask them.
they made a pretty good case that they contacted numerous tradespeople to do this work, which was a high skilled piece of work, carpentry and copper, slate and copper.
And
So
years out.
yeah, and we're years out, at least a couple of years out, which I don't doubt because they're busy. So they made that, if you,
But they didn't contact the one group in town that does it.
They had a quote from Blackstone.
They did?
Yeah.
they said they
I didn't
did.
see that.
I saw it in at least one packet, or it may have been something that,
No, wait a minute. We have more than one thing we're talking about. If we're talking about Farron, I don't think he did. The one on West Broadway or whatever did.
could be. I know I've seen a piece
But
of
I'm just
paper.
making that comment now, and I'm not speaking to subsequent, I'm just talking about what I knew about that particular case. Yeah.
I think that Farron, so I wasn't here for the November meeting or
No.
whatever. So Farron had a lot of different quotes after, right? Is that how it works?
After.
I saw them
Yeah.
physically when I was here
After.
for, yeah. So he had Blackstone in his packet.
Okay.
Well, for the one I was.
His representative.
Caution you all,
Right.
I know the appeals period is over for this application, but I'm not sure you should be talking about the application now without him being here.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you are able to have the conversation without referring to a specific application, that might be
Thank you.
best.
Well, back to my issue, and Mike, you had brought up that you thought that one of the major issues had to do with the lack of services. But I will say that this one that you just signed, the number one thing was the economic issue. Okay? The property cannot yield a reasonable economic return. And so I'm back to my original discussion, which was that point, which that,
It's,
you know, do we have any, there may not be a number, but do we have a procedure or process to evaluate that in any way? Or do we simply accept an applicant saying, I'm never going to get out of this what I put in it, even though we might say, well, we'll take a slate roof as as an example.
Mm.
It's going to last 4 times as long as an asphalt. But the question is, in the eyes of the economic return, are we talking about short-term, long-term? What are we talking? And how do we look at that? Now, I do agree with you, Edmund, that if we leave it totally open, then we can have that discussion in every individual case.
That's how it's
But
written.
I think that that's a lot to ask of members that are new to this process, have not been doing this or whatever, to just kind of come up with, because I can tell you, having heard at this table some very strong emotional responses to things that were not specifically other than, we can't do something that looks like this. Okay, and I'm not, I'm just saying that the discussion isn't always that rational about what's going on, and this is a very rational point.
Peter, I am in no way disagreeing with what you have said. I just, the verbiage of that specific piece is, I feel, intentionally vague to leave it to the interpretation of the people who, I was going to say paid, but we're not paid, the people who volunteer to sit themselves in some sort of judgment over that. And that is something that, again, I don't have the same specific architectural or artistic background or archaeological background that, or the passion, history that you have for it. But so I came to this commission with well, this could be interesting. And I've had to learn a lot. I've learned a lot about Windows. Thank you, Mike. Never knew what a Muntin was before, but I do now. And I can now talk about divided light with the best of them and a true simulated divided light. So like I've learned a lot, but it's one of those.
And Edmund, I think you've done a very good job with it. Liam, I think you've done incredible jobs with these issues. I am not here in an opposition
Right.
way at all. My issue is trying to figure out, how do we clear the path for the future so we can more reasonable, more consistent, and, have less angst about it all when we sit down and try and figure this out. And then when we get an extremely oppositional, contrary person that's applying, that brings their lawyers to object and jump on all sorts of questions.
So before, I think you had something you want to say. So before Anya jumps on there, this was my kind of take on this, and I will share just for myself. We've had a couple slate roofs come before us now, and I tried to remove, for myself, whatever I might feel about the applicants was not relevant for me anymore. And because there was a lot of emotion going on, and I needed to keep it to what evidence did I have in front of me?
Sure.
What precedent have we set for ourselves? Because while we are not bound by it, Peter, we are behooved to not operate whimsically, in my own opinion anyway. And so from my take on that, my guidance was, if this was the logic we applied to this slate roof applicant, emotion out of it, the same things apply. And so for me, that made it pretty clear. The clinch point had nothing to do with the finances, as both Rebecca and Mike have alluded to. It truly was yes, there are slate roof contractors in the area. Most of them are not local anymore, unfortunately, which is unfortunate. And the skilled tradesman has declined, as just like we're not harvesting slate from the best places anymore either. But it was one of those well, I look at a slate roof and be like, this is very important. This is what historical preservation is about. But who's going to do it? And if you can't get a person to put a new roof on your house, and your house you are caught between and I'll use the example of the insurance company. Like the insurance company, if you don't do this, you're out. I understand. I don't agree, but I can understand you can't get someone to do this without a 3-year lead time, and it's going to take a year before they even get you a quote in the first place. I understand. I can see that, because it's all about the contractor for the exceptional circumstances for me, specific to this instance, and it will happen a lot more because the slate roofs are aging out, unfortunately.
So I totally agree with your comment about consistency, and whether we look at precedent in sort of a semi-floating way or a rigid way. You are talking about precedent, and that's really what I'm
Agreed.
pushing, which is to say that if we can come to some better understanding of how we approach these, and if we don't have hard numbers, a way of looking at it.
And this is what I hope that you all will get out of your code review. And Anya, please.
Yes, that's one of the areas we're looking at. We're going to look at other language that other places have, and look at the secretary standards for economic and technical feasibility to hopefully provide some clarity. But just backing up what Edmund has said, you do want to be purposely vague, kind of, to give you all the discretion to approve or deny that, because you don't want to tie your hands too much, because every situation is going to be different. So the purpose is to be discretionary, really.
I do think we have a greater challenge possibly in this area than a lot of others. I mean, if I had done what I did with the property I was talking about in the middle of Boston, I would have been able to sell it for what I put into it.
Yeah.
There's no way I could get it out here. It just couldn't happen. And so in that sense, I think we are even at a greater challenge because we have all of those issues. We bring it up time and time again as to how do we help our historic homeowners, businesses be able to do this restoration
Yeah,
that we believe in and think is important?
right.
The verbiage that I have used in the past couple of meetings, Peter, has been, if we're not here to be punitive, and that is my belief that we are not, we should, as a commission, assume, I think, the activist role that you would like us to be doing. And how do you make owning a historic home
How do you make it feasible?
not even feasible, attractive?
Well, yeah.
Like, how do you get people who are going to want to, how do you find someone, Peter, I'm going to use you as an example, who are willing to buy the house and then put money into it that's never going to come back? That's hard because you have to find people who care and you have to, whatever we can do to help, that's all part of the workshops.
Yeah, you need people that don't learn by experience like me, because I'm doing it again. I'm on my third historic house.
Glutton for punishment, Peter.
In Bangor.
Oof.
Glutton for punishment, Peter.
Somebody just stopped me.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you.
Mike, did you have?
I just wanted to make a simple point, regarding precedent. When we look across the spectrum of time that the commission's been working since 1974, I think, when the first commission was set up here.
Yep.
There've been a lot of different structures to the commission, different advisors, different issues. But when an applicant comes in and says, holds up pictures of asphalt roofs that were previously slate up and down a neighborhood and says, the commission gave me permission to do that.
Mhm.
When you hear that, it is actually, it's resounding. And so, but the point is, the commission is just bound to what the ordinance directs you to do for each particular case.
Right.
And as much as we don't want to hear it, this is interpreted on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
So you take the best information you've got that's available to the commission, you listen to the arguments that are being made, you listen to maybe even what the consultant might tell you, and then you make the best decision you can. And it's not going to be the same as what a commission might have done 15 years ago.
Right.
It may not be the same.
Right.
You try to approach things objectively, honestly, and evidentiary.
Right.
And that's hard,
Yep.
especially for those of us who have been here for a while, are passionate about the town you live in or the house you live in, the districts you're in. The more you care, the harder it is to take that apart, take that out. And you shouldn't take it all.
The whole point of having the commission is to have all of our like very definitive characteristics on the panel to share those discussions and to be adamant about whatever point that you would like to make, so like otherwise they would just have a set standard rules, like you said, and it would just be done by the staff.
That'll be done by code.
So like that's the point of having us on the panel for sure.
Sure.
And I think it's important, especially since when the commission actually started, which is after urban renewal, like this is very, very
You
important.
were here then, right?
I'm still on that stupid board.
It is clear in the national legislation that it is set up to create a local commission who understands local circumstances, and they're the ones that have to make the hard decision.
Mhm.
So the national guidelines are principled and general and set up some big structures, but their whole point is, as interpreted by the local commission, that will know better than even the state or certainly the federal level. So
Well, I'll make the comment that I think this is the best historic commission meeting I've been in.
You,
No, I'm absolutely serious.
no, Peter, you would have loved the workshop.
Yeah, the workshop was.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry I couldn't make it. But the bottom line is that this is where I come back to, I really think if we have, if we can stand 2 meetings a month, that one of them based on moving forward the agenda overall is important. These things are the things that we make the decisions on. And I think that every point here is a great point. And I think, we have to be aware of what precedent may or may not mean.
Mhm.
Maybe helped a little bit more about the enforcement piece, because I can tell you that listening to various members of this committee being a little hot under the collar about the fact that we have an applicant that flies in the face of what is said and what sort of enforcement is there. There was apparently a comment in the workshop or something from a person in the community about, what happens when the person, why go through this process if somebody's going to come to the commission, be denied, do it anyway, and then just come back and get approval later? I mean, and that is a sentiment that, I've heard from some people closely and intimate and involved in this commission, and sometimes felt it myself. And I also been on the other side of the homeowner where it's like, okay, I spent all this money on this house and all this money in renovation, and why shouldn't I allowed to be at least do a little bit of what I want to do with this? That if I had been the homeowner 50, 75 years ago and did, it would now be considered part of the historic fabric of this house.
It's true.
Where is my evolutionary process in this where I'm allowed to do a little of that? And there's that piece too. And I think we're bringing up that this is a fluid process and a discussion. And I really want to be able to have this kind of discussion when an applicant comes to us and, flush it out and discuss it.
Peter, it's my belief that the solution to the fractious few meetings that we had is the outreach that you want and community involvement from the people who are coming before us. One of the things that I liked that came up was that I don't want to call them the opposition because that's not really what they were at this point, but the group of homeowners from that historical district suggested that maybe there should be representatives from each district to not necessarily to act as an advisory role, I think was how they phrased it, for the commission to represent that district. I'm like, that sounds great. Go do that.
Mhm.
You don't need me for that.
Mhm.
I was like, if you guys want to have a
Anybody can sit
neighborhood
in this
coalition,
meeting that they want to. They can have committees, they do whatever they want, come and give information at the public discussion.
if there's anything that I feel like I've heard Rebecca say it more than once. So it's like, because your advice to, I think, people has always been, you need to deluge us with information. Like,
Yes.
because you don't know what questions we're going to want.
Right.
Come prepared, bring as much information as possible. And the more people that we have to help provide information within the framework that we have, I think the better our decisions will be and the more community connection and involvement you'll have with that.
Can I bring up one other question based on that discussion?
Yeah, of course.
There was in the minutes, again, some discussion about one of our members being brought up and then recused for going out and looking at a property on her own. I don't know all of the historic properties in the city. Mike, you know most of them, but I don't. Just to bring up and see someone is bringing an applicant and being able to say, what does that look like in the community? Where is it? Part of our charge is to make adjustments and decide whether we approve an action based on the interaction of that structure in the community. Yet if I am not allowed to go out and look myself, how do I fulfill that?
So this is what I will say, because it's not the first time that this has come up. We're allowed to go look at the property, but it has to be announced, because if we are going to go look at it, it has to be public.
Noticed public meeting.
Like,
I'm sorry?
A noticed public
that
meeting.
we cannot go.
Oh, well, but what about me as an individual member? I mean, can I not go and so I can have better information to provide discussion in the group?
Because
No.
then that gives you information that everybody else isn't privy to because they haven't had that.
Everybody else has the opportunity to go look at the piles
They
too.
have, but if we don't, it's clearer if everybody goes at the same time. That way we all know and the public knows that you all went to go see it at the same time.
Wow. I mean, it seems to me like a tremendous hindrance on the ability of the members to actually make a reasonable decision, because indeed what we get on these pieces of paper are photographs. You're trying to figure out, is this the front? Is this the back?
Understood.
What is this? And what's next to it? I can't see. And I can't even go on Google Earth or something and look at the neighborhood according to the regulation, right?
meetings law and public access. So you know,
We have to be above board. Like we have to be, which means our actions as a commission we have to do it in the public eye. So now what is stated in the minutes and is permitted based on our other meetings is that, listen, if you are traveling through the city of Bangor, because that is because you are, you use Broadway. If you're driving up and down Broadway, Rebecca, what you can see from your drive is fine. But you as a member of the commission, knowing that an applicant is coming before you, can't stop at that location and snoop. But that you can't, Peter, that you can't do because you are a public figure. Like we have to be, we can all go, but you can't do it on your own.
And I'm talking about walking down the street and looking at it. Can I walk?
That's why I said snoop.
Not
Of course you can walk, but you can't stop and snoop.
So,
But it's also, I think that what we're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if the person had sent the information to everyone on the panel, right, in an email, then it would have been okay too, because then all of us
Staff.
would have gotten through the information at the same
Your staff would have been better.
Right. Yeah, okay.
But it would have to be advertised as a public meeting, right?
yeah, that's.
If we all went, yes.
Yeah, and we've only done a site visit one time since I've been here and that was for planning board, and that was noticed as a public meeting
Yeah.
where people could attend.
Other commissions do this, like sincerely, like we haven't in the years that I've been here, but other commissions do site visits. They are much more active, Peter, and they go out and do it. Usually those commissions have more staff members and sometimes paid people, like some to coordinate that stuff. Like that's the other piece of that.
doesn't seem like a practical process unless, I mean, the fact is that we have these public meetings and there's an issue of quorum. So, I mean,
Yep.
is it possible to say, oh, we have a scheduled site visit forever who wants to come?
I guess,
That I don't know.
see, and then another thing
I mean,
that would have
splitting
been,
hairs about how fast you can drive by and whether you can do.
well,
this
no, and that was a thing too, 'cause
etc.
the argument was like, this is my route home, like obviously I'm gonna drive down this road. But I think that the point was, and this is where we need better education. Had that person brought all the materials to everyone, it would have been fine.
Uh,
So like, we just need better education.
So I'm not arguing the point about, I wasn't here for that.
Yeah.
The recusal per se. I was just using it as just sort of an example, which is to say that I find myself, and I'm bringing in this is what I bring up, hampered by the fact that I can't actually go look at this property. I can only look at, what I get here
Right.
and what prints out on my printer. I mean, it seems like,
I
it
understand.
seems like you're hamstringing the people that are most important in making these decisions.
I understand the feeling. And yes, you are hamstrung by that.
Yep,
It's intentional.
If I could,
but not very helpful.
that's why, Peter, we all have access, the commission all has access to Karma forms, which is what we do when we do an architectural survey. And they have a ton of information about each property, usually good photography, backed up with statistics about the place, what makes it.
So I can look it up. I just can't go
Everybody.
look at it.
Would it,
I
That's
provide,
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. You're not ridiculous. I'm just saying that it just seems like, what's the difference?
yeah.
clarity on what information sources you can get might be relevant. It might also be something worth considering. Anya, you'd probably have a better idea than me how feasible this is. But if there is an application, is there someone on staff who could go take photos to include in the package so that you have something that is objective and not provided by the applicant?
Or is that available on this?
Well,
data?
We have it on Karma.
Okay.
So that's something that maybe we want to consider in the future, is saying when we send this out as a package, that it is allowable for any commission member to look on Karma to find out as much information as they can as a public access.
Right, I always
And
provide.
the street's not public access, I get, but that would be, huh?
That's typically what Mike puts in his report.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Nate.
That's like where he has.
No, it's where you get that stuff, but
And-
we could access that as well, you're saying?
Yeah,
That would not be against the rules?
no, I don't think so. You go to MHPC's website and under quick links, it says Karma. You can click on Karma, it shows all the state Karma forms,
Yeah, and
the entire state of Maine.
it would be, because you're already putting in the.
Yeah,
report.
The provenance of evidence being used in our decisions has to be above board.
that's public
And public.
information.
Like that's the,
I thought the buildings are above board. I mean, structures
Okay.
above the
It
ground.
would be good to have this conversation when legal comes to do their training.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
But I think these are seminal issues for this board because how do you get your information? I mean, the one for today, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, you know, look at what they did. Oh my God, you know, but
You and everyone else.
I don't know what's sitting next to it. I don't know how to make the judgments of what, you know, Mike has been so good to help us understand, to look at not just the building, but its environment. You see what I'm saying? It's just, I just don't feel like I can go out and get that myself and do it justice.
That was a tough reality, I think, for Ann Quinn, when
She cares so much, she wants to go.
she does care a lot.
Oh, hugely.
And she thought she was doing the right thing by getting herself educated about something. And as it turns
And
out, she admitted to taking photographs, and that's.
Yeah. Well, and I, you know, and I, unfortunately, I think, you know, she resigned because she felt that she took initiative and she was
yeah. I don't
knocked
know.
down for
Maybe
it.
We can talk about this kind of
No,
thing.
of course not.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Nate,
Well, and I know one of the discussions we had on the October 29th meeting,
that was the workshop.
workshop was looking at City of Portland's putting together sort of a
Mm.
big digital how-to for their historic preservation process.
Mhm.
This is, you know, when they say we talk about these features, here's photographic examples from the town and things like that. And one of the parts that was discussed with that was giving better instructions to the applicants in terms of like, these are the types of photos that we need. This is the type of information that we need. If you're doing X, we need Y type evidence, to sort of break it down Barney style for everyone that,
Yeah.
you know, maybe isn't a historic preservation professional or isn't passionate about old buildings or whatever.
That's yeah.
Just so that it sort of puts it in plain language and says, hey, if you're taking this feature of your house, we need a photo. It needs to look like this, not, you know, this very narrow.
Well, this and
field of view.
the building on either side or something. I mean, if indeed, I mean, the historic preservation principles being that it's not just an isolated structure, right?
It's in harmony with your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can definitely require the applicants provide more information and more photos of the surroundings.
So I would think that would be a great discussion for workshop in terms of what the commission members would feel is appropriate as a base amount of information to be brought forward.
I know, Rebecca, all the information.
What's that?
Give me all the
Say,
information.
when you present, could you please have a drone over your,
Yeah.
over your house so we can fly it around?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see what legal says about whether we can access virtual databases of what it looks like, even though we can't physically go look at it with our eyes. Well, or like I'm sorry, you said the name of the
Karma.
Karma.
Not to play devil's advocate, but at what point do we make a separation? Like, what if this is someone that you live on the same, or you have to take that street to go to your house and you see it all the time? Now, is that a conflict of interest? Because you drive by the house all the time?
You're
Question.
thinking about that building on Broadway, aren't you? Your favorite building?
I don't think that would be my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but if you lived next to it, that
Well, yeah, because you're in the neighborhood.
right.
But if you drive
I
by
live in
all
the
the
same
time-
city and I care. Is that a conflict?
I know, that's what
Maybe.
we really have to.
Well, you're getting a little extra here on that.
Well,
Maybe, Peter, maybe.
But I mean, we are talking about very specific definitions of what's allowed, and I guess that's where I'm pushing the point.
Yeah.
We will,
And so it makes it difficult to know what you can do. Because I will tell you, coming on this commission, I had no idea. I couldn't actually go out and look at the properties. You know, I learned that, but I was sort of flabbergasted that I couldn't.
you can as a private citizen, you can't as a member of the commission.
Well, once you're a member of the commission,
You're no longer a private citizen.
I mean,
Correct.
I couldn't stick around when I was voted to having conflict of interest. I was told to leave the meeting. I couldn't sit down as a public, and provide any public comment.
I know.
So I was taken out of every aspect of that issue, and I just don't know that that's appropriate either.
Typically, you're accused to be outside of the room that the consideration's being taken,
Well-
because you might make faces, you might go, oh my.
You can look at the
Gesture.
door.
Which I could do if I wasn't a member of the commission.
Correct.
Maybe I'd have better
Well-
influence if I was just a citizen.
Hold on, though. Don't you leave me. I'm here for another year. No, but I think one point I do
At
want to
least.
make is that okay, it's very extremely vital that we have good quality people on this board. We have a lot of people leaving.
Oh, yes, we do.
So now we need to we need to hone this in quickly because not everyone's going to have the same interests or, abilities or knowledge that honestly that this panel right now has.
Oh, I know, we're losing a huge
So
amount of resource.
I know. So yeah.
Mike, you're not going anywhere. are you?
Oh,
I'm not.
Unless he
Good.
takes a painting class again. I mean, I assume there are replacements, but I don't know.
I have to double check because last time I checked was maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago and we didn't then. So let me.
So I
Yes.
made a decision about applying to be a regular member versus an associate. I think that the structure of this commission should be that associates move up into be regulars because otherwise you're going to have regular voting people that have no experience and the associates have that experience.
That
But
sounds like a great code revision to propose.
yeah, I just makes all the sense in the world that you do that. I mean, because otherwise you're gonna have regular, well, you know the issue, but, so, I mean, if I'm gonna continue, I am definitely going to, and I need to do it probably immediately, because I wasn't told what the time frame was per se, but make an application, I guess, and write another letter
Yes.
saying that I would like to be a regular member.
Yeah, I don't know the exact procedure, so I would contact Lisa Goodwin, the city.
Okay.
yeah, I was gonna say, and then you'll get interviewed by the
Right.
city council.
Yep. Edmund, Liam.
We started the same time.
Anne Marie. She's retired.
She
She
resigned.
resigned.
Thank you.
It'll be up
And-
to good.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Matt has some of the same questions that I've brought forth. And he's kind of stayed away from the meetings, I think, because of the issues. Didn't want to be, how should I say, causing disruption or confusion or other issues with the contentious nature of what was going on. But he has a lot of the same questions about, can he be effective in doing anything here? Or do the exceptions outweigh the rules to the degree that there's no real authority or whatever? I mean, these are things I know he has concerns about. I think everybody thinks about a little bit.
You will never be able to have a code that's going to cover every single possible
I agree.
it just won't be possible. You can push for that, but there'll always be something that will come up and break that, unfortunately. It's why you want to keep your general principles and train on that and then coach your procedure. I told Rebecca I would sit in the audience at least for January. So
Well, good. One of the things that I find interesting for me, my experience here was that, and in reading what we do and the final result, we've become, over the couple of years I've been involved here, much more prescriptive about what gets put on paper. You've been part of that, and that we look at each individual statute and we vote on each individual one. And what's interesting is we're discussing today the need for us to not be bound
Too much.
too much to specifics, but the documents have become more specific. And I've been trying myself to figure out, well, can I speak my opinion if it doesn't meet exactly the letter of what's here in the discussion? And, where I'm at right now is, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to speak my opinion, but we definitely need to be very grounded in what the verbiage, formal verbiage is.
the increase in, I'm going to say, complexity or formality in the presentations that we see was to help us understand what we were talking about, like what we were discussing. We definitely had a development phase, if you'd like.
I think it's been
Where
a
we
big
were,
change.
well, we were talking about how we felt about something, and we weren't talking about the evidence that was presented to us.
Right.
So I think the structure was to help guide that. And the one, I guess my piece of advice from a conversation amongst yourselves is, listen, I very specifically ask every one of you because I want to make sure that people say something if you have something to say.
I think that's
But-
very good.
It's also on what you can't say is, I'm not going to vote for this, or I'm definitely going to vote for this. Like, you can't do that. You do that in the vote. And also you want to keep your conversation pertinent to what we were talking about. So especially, this was a learning curve for me. And I know, Liam, I think you're ahead of me on the journey because I forgot about the meeting that one time. it was a rough day. But where we're looking at the verbiage that they have there and like, all right, so we're talking about this criteria specifically. And as you point out, Peter, sometimes they can fail the other criteria because this is the one that really does matter or may not apply. And we've only, that I've seen, actually started applying that in very much later meetings. We've been doing this format for half a year at least. It's,
I think it's good.
you are correct in that we've been trying to, I think, to push ourselves towards the point where we have the clarity and the structure that we wanted to, so that you can take that structure and apply it honestly with the feelings that you have about historic preservation. It does not sit well with me, just speaking from my own opinion, as the least formally trained person in the room. I don't like that slate roofs are hard to replace. I don't like that. I struggle with every one of those special circumstances that we've had, and that doesn't matter who they are. And there's going to be many more of them that you're going to have. Like I struggle with yeah, it's okay, because I remember like when we started, like you guys had just done the waterworks one, and that was a big to do, and then there was no slate roofs for 5 years, 5.5 years. There was only windows, and then all of a sudden, that's hard for me. I don't like it,
Yeah, I hear you.
but as Michael alluded, I was convinced by, okay, it's 4 years to get a slate contractor and 2 years before they'll even give you a quote. I'm like, all right, it's not, that's the problem. And I don't know how to solve that. If I knew how to solve it, I'd be like Mike, pushing the rebuild your windows individually each time. It's fine. You need to look right.
If you want to solve it, put industrial arts back in the schools.
Okay, I know that
I'm-
part.
I made my own windows for 88 Fountain Street. I bought shapers and all sorts of fun things and
You should
got a
stop,
chance to do that.
Peter, you should stop buying houses in Bangor and go buy a slate quarry in Moncton.
I want to thank everyone for the discussion today. I mean, this has been actually very good for me, but I also think the discussion's good for the commission. And so it's been a good thing to serve with the two of you leaving us.
There's no alternate member positions to apply for, Peter.
Just a reminder, you do need to vote to postpone.
We will.
Okay.
I haven't forgotten.
Right.
We were still going. I'm like, no, we're not adjourning. Since I don't think we need to recess. We've been here for an hour and I'll say 15 minutes, just to round up a little bit. Would someone like to motion to table to the what's the date of the next meeting? Because I won't be here, so I don't know.
Double check.
That's just for you.
1 second.
I can say the January 26th meeting, but I don't know the exact
It's
date.
January 8th.
Thank you.
Yep.
We will assume that Nate knows what he's talking about. Would someone like to motion that we'll table this till?
I make a motion that we table the certificate of appropriateness for 62 High Street to the January 8th regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Do I have a second?
Oh, I don't know if can I do that?
Second.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, no, Peter.
I want to jump in, but
I will do a roll call vote. We'll start with you, Liam.
Yes.
Nathaniel,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes. I know, right? We don't have enough members.
and I also vote yes. Motion to table passes successfully. And for the last time,
I have a motion.
okay,
Can we motion to tell Edmund and Liam thanks for their service on the meeting?
I don't think you need a motion
Service.
for it, but appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Point of order for the next meeting.
You have quorum
We
if you have
don't
enough
have a
members.
chair
You elected that meeting.
at that
It's
meeting.
always messy. The senior most member will start the meeting.
It's a 9-5.
Yes, it is.
You're more senior than me.
I'm like, yes, it is. The senior most member will chair the meeting until you elect a chair, and then
When does that happen? On the January?
that's usually the first order of business.
Exactly.
Well, everybody remember to get sworn in.
Yeah. You would never forget getting sworn in before the January meeting.
You need help.
I'll sit in the audience,
You need help.
maybe. I mean, yes, I will help you regardless. Okay,
City clerk.
Maybe.
last chance for everyone in the room to say something on the record. That's what I thought. Okay, for the last time, Liam, you want to say it with me? You want to hold half the gavel? By the awesome power of the chair, I announce this meeting adjourned.